ANC step-aside rule is not achieving its intended result and should therefore be scrapped. This is the word from some of the ANC regions in the province of Limpopo. Some leaders there, including suspended Secretary-General Magashule of the party, have been barred, of course, from taking up their roles due to this rule. The matter is expected to be discussed at the party's Provincial General Council ahead of the National Policy Conference this weekend. eNCA's Moloko Moloto is covering the story for us, and he joins us now. Moloko, good evening. And it's such an interesting call because, of course, the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal does not support the step-aside rule. And now we're hearing that the ANC in Limpopo feels the same way. Talk to me about their reasoning for not supporting the step-aside rule.
Good evening, Sally Badet. Indeed, it would appear that the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal now has an ally in the form of the ANC in the northernmost province of Limpopo. Today, the party here in Limpopo held a special provincial general council really to prepare the delegates who will be participating in the National Policy Conference that's scheduled to take place this weekend in Johannesburg. We just stepped out of a media briefing now that was addressed by the Secretary of the ANC in the province, Ruben Madate, and other officials of the PEC members of the ANC. And they are very clear, Sally, they want this controversial step aside to be scrapped, not even try to review it or tighten up the loopholes that this particular step aside rule is experiencing. Now, according to the ANC in this province, they believe that they have spent, as the party nationally, so many years and energies discussing this particular rule, and they believe that it is divisive. You'd remember, Sally, that in the province of Limpopo, there were two officials of the ANC, the deputy chairperson and the provincial treasurer at the time, who were forced to step aside because one, that is Denim Caesar, who was the treasurer then, was actually charged criminally. However, at the time, the provincial deputy chairperson was never criminally charged. That is Florence Radzilani, who was implicated in the VBS scandal. Even today, she's not been charged, but she was made to step aside for about 2 years. And so they believe that this is actually applied to target certain people. And let's listen to Premier Stan Mathabata, who is the provincial chairperson of the ANC, when we spoke to him earlier, asking him whether this step aside has really worked.
Whether it was implemented fairly or not, I can't make a judgment there because it was never tested. But what we are saying is that it is not achieving the intended results. What it was intended to achieve when we came up with it at NASREC is not exactly what we are seeing out there. And the other fact is that we need, if we have to continue with it, if our policy conference here decide that we recommend that we continue with it, if we have to continue with it, it has to be refined so that we can take out, minimize all elements of ambiguity within it. Because as it was being implemented now, we were refining, trying to review, refine it, whilst we were continuing implementing it at the same time. So I don't think we have done justice to what it was supposed to do.
I mean, there's a vast difference between perhaps reviewing areas of ambiguity and scrapping it all together, because then surely the ANC has no position on its members who are charged with serious crimes, or am I wrong?
Well, the issue here, Sally, is that historically, if you remember, in 2012, the ANC took a resolution in Mangaung that members of the party who are facing allegations, at that time it was not even a matter of you having to wait for the criminal charges. Once there were allegations against you, at that time the ANC said people needed to step aside and present themselves to the Integrity Commission. In 2017, it took it a little bit higher to say if you are charged. But we saw the National Executive Committee of the ANC tweaking it as time went along. Even in this province, for instance, Denim Caesar, who wanted last month to contest for the position of secretary, he was barred primarily because the ANC NEC just a few weeks before that decided that you cannot even stand for election, let alone in addition to you having to step aside. So this is obviously causing a lot of arguments with the provincial spokesperson of the ANC in Limpopo, who is a lawyer, by the way, saying it is inconsistent, Jimmy Machaka, saying it is inconsistent with the Constitution of the Republic. Obviously, Sally, going into the National Conference in December, which is the only structure that is that has the power to either continue with it or expunge it, it's going to be a game of numbers. So the lobbying will have to start now, going into that general, the National Conference. Of course, even coming into today's meeting, there were some regions, majority of them, of course, are saying scrap it. But some, for instance, the Norman Mashabane, we spoke to the spokesperson there, coming into this meeting, who are saying, perhaps don't get rid of it, let's find a way of refining it. Let's listen to Peter Ngobeni speaking to us earlier before this resolution was taken in this meeting.
It's very important rule which is aimed at regulating the conduct of its members within the ranks of the African National Congress. The discussion has to go as far as appreciating that we may need to strengthen areas which makes people to feel that is being selective. There are some semblance of belief that the implementation of the step-aside rule is being done in a manner that is not consistent with the principles and, of course, what is expected of. So our position really, and of course, it will be discussed in this Provincial General Council thoroughly, that we've got to do away and detach completely the feelings and be very practical and factual in terms of how we deal with this particular matter. Because at the end of it all, the conduct, the behavior of the members of the ANC has to be regulated.
Yeah, some very interesting developments in KwaZulu-Natal and Limpopo for ANC structures. And thank you very much for bringing us those thoughts on the ground. That's our reporter, Moloko Moloto.